We've got Neil here, and this is something that I wanted to do just because I've always really wanted to talk to someone that actually went through the program. And I know a lot of you feel the same because I read some of the comments too. And so we have Neil here. I just met him for the first time, and he's someone that went through the course. And I'd love to ask you some questions, but maybe before that, would love to just get to know you for a minute. Can you tell me about yourself, what you have done for a living, experience with online business, passive income?
Yeah, sure. My name's Neil. I'm from the UK originally, lived in the US for pushing on 20 years now. Studied languages. That was my major at college, university. I almost right out of college, I went into freelance work online. So I quite quickly became familiar with sort of the laptop lifestyle. I was really attracted to it. So I worked as a freelance translator for about 12 years. And then
What would you translate mainly?
I was doing a lot of, I worked for a lot of agencies in Europe. And so I was doing a lot of European directives because they had to be harmonized across all European countries. So there was never an end stream of work. But it seemed as though I kind of got in at the right time. And I also kind of found something else at the right time because AI and Google Translate became so powerful that it kind of put a lot of translators out of work, or the volume of work went down pretty quickly. So I went through a couple of other things here in Florida and worked with a family member in some sales, but always kind of online. I was always geared towards kind of working from home and marketing, kind of sales and marketing. I started a business doing, contrary to all what I just said, I started a business doing pay sealing, the physical business here in Florida, which was good. I built it. It went quite well. It grew for 18 months. And then COVID happened. I got COVID and I was I was in bed for a week. I was bedbound and looking at ways to get back into the working from home lifestyle. And Shiv's course popped up and, I was instantly attracted to the concept and reached out and had a call with him and just waited to hear what the number was. And I was like, yeah, take my money. I'm in. Let's go.
And I imagine because you had that painting business, like you understood that model immediately.
I mean, yeah, it sold itself to me immediately. I know that your whole group is about passive income, and I'd never really made any passive income before doing this. Obviously, it's a no-brainer. Anyone can say that they want to make passive income, but it's not easy to achieve. But this looked very achievable. It looked doable. Yeah, and I just dove right in head first. I thought, I had kind of an exit strategy or an exit opportunity from my paper sealing business, and so I kind of shaped that to sell. So I sold that business, and then kind of in that same period transitioned into full time into just head first into the rank and rent.
Hmm. And what time frame was this? When?
This was around July August of 21, 21.
Oh, okay.
More, yeah,
Okay.
2021.
Yeah, yeah. Almost 5 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Pushing 5 years. Yeah. So it was really COVID being bedbound that kind of made me discover the model and make the change.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you dove, you went all in. Do you remember what that first kind of moment was like? Just like diving into the course, the training, where like the video. I'm sure like he's updated it since because it's been 5 years, but do you remember your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, a little vaguely now, but there wasn't really a course at that time. There wasn't, like a structured, course that you could follow with videos and like there is now. At that time, it was kind of piecemeal information that they would just kind of put together. I think I was one of the earlier people in the group. I think I was something like number 70, more or less. So it's still quite kind of a new group. So we were obviously all following what Shiv was teaching, but it was kind of there wasn't much organization to it, and so there was a little bit of figuring things out required, and I was okay with that because I was so convinced by it. I was like, why? This is what I'm going to do now. Thankfully, my wife and I had some savings that we knew we could probably rely on for at least a year, or probably about a year, and to do this because she also started her own business the same month, which is in hindsight a little crazy. We went from income to zero income, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
But you were doing this full time, and did it?
I figured that's what it would require. I think with any business to do it successfully, you can't really part time. I mean, you can. It's doable part time, but I think to if you want to generate full time income, then I think it requires full time attention.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm skipping ahead here, but how long did it take you to earn, a livable income?
Yeah, livable. The way I looked at it was, as soon as I have enough to pay my bills, the pressure's off. That's the way I saw it, and that probably came about after about 12 months. That's when we stopped the bleed of the savings. The savings just went right down, and then
Yeah,
we equalized, and then slowly went back up. So about
gotcha.
12 months, the income started to trickle in a little bit after 5 months, but then within about 12 months, I was making enough to pay the bills.
Nice. Oh, that's great. And how much knowledge did you have before? You said you really favored the digital, like, laptop lifestyle. Did you have SEO experience before?
No, no, not at all. No, no. I didn't know what a backlink was. I knew nothing about SEO, but I mean, I'm quite kind of, I'm not, what's the opposite of technophobe? I'm quite, uh,
Yeah, you're just a lover of technology.
yeah, just press
Yeah.
buttons. I'm not afraid to dive in, and I think that's my approach anyway to business and a lot of things is, just dive right into it, go full speed and see what sticks.
Yeah.
A lot of people can go a completely different direction and be very analytical about it. I'm not analytical. I think I'm a lot more chaotic for better or worse. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
didn't really.
that can be a gift because I know I'm the other way. I'm more analytical and I like to think things through and be strategic. And I don't want to make a wrong move. Like, that's the fault of mine is like, and because I don't want to make a wrong move, a lot of times I don't end up making a move at all. So it's like a lot of times, especially in business, it's like, it's just better to just go do it because a lot of times, no matter how much planning you do, once you go do it, it's different anyways. Like, there's some factor or something that you didn't account for.
Right.
So
There
yeah.
was there was something said as well in Eric's excuse me, Shiv's business partner at the time, Eric. Just one of the things he said stuck with me, which was just there's nothing you can do in this business, in this model that you can't fix. And so,
Mm,
that quickly that fit well with my approach to life anyway. I was like, oh, so I can just, bull in a china shop, go after it and not worry about it. And essentially that's kind of what I did. I mean, I wasn't, I'm not reckless about things. I try to do things according to the suggested kind of approach, but I'm not afraid to make a mistake because I feel like yeah, it's kind of a volume model, I think. At least the way I've done it, it's more about numbers. The more you build, the more chances you have of them ranking or sticking, rather than putting all your focus and attention on a few little sites. Just build 100. They're going to rank. Some of them are
and
going to.
yeah, and you said about 5 months you started getting some traction. What was that moment like? Like, I guess 4 months in, were you like, "I don't know if this is gonna work?" Or were you fully committed?
There was definitely moments of doubt for sure. Yeah, yeah. And I allowed myself the first 2 or 3 months to kind of just be in the education phase, and just I'm not worried yet. I'm not going to worry because we had a bit of a backstop funds. But yeah, probably by month 4 or 5, I was kind of like, doubts creep in, of course. But I think for me, the changing moment was being less afraid or just being bold enough to pick up the phone and start making phone calls. Because I think the first 3 months, because I'd worked from home for so many years that I was somewhat of a hermit. I enjoy just not talking to people on the phone and just being kind of in my little bubble and it's quiet. I like it is now. I like this. But, this required me to kind of step outside my comfort zone, make phone calls to strangers, be rejected, multiple times. So that was hard, and that kind of definitely sowed a little doubt in my mind for a minute. Yeah, of course. But I think once I was able to get that first deal, and it was a small deal, but it was $300 a month, but it was validation, and so then it
Yeah,
was great. It was enough to completely hook me even more and be like, this works.
totally. Yeah. Once you get that first dollar in, I think it's just even if it's small, it's like, "Oh, this works." Like, people are willing to part with their money for what I got.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did something that they want, and now they're going to pay me for it.
Totally.
It's really validating. Yeah.
Uh, what was the hardest part, do you think? Like, now that you've had 5 years of doing this, what do you think is like the most, and I guess it could be different for everybody, but what was what's been the hardest part? Is like selecting the niche? Is it the SEO ranking? Is it outreach to businesses, closing deals, client management?
In my experience, I would say probably prospecting, finding. Even then, though, I think it's gotten more difficult now, I think. A little more difficult now. But there's always new tools coming out to solve any problem that arises. And Shift's great at releasing new things, like seeing an obstacle and figuring out how to get around it and sharing it with his students. So even prospecting, he's given great tips on how to get around that. So that for me was hard. Putting in the hardest part was probably putting in the time and picking up the phone and making those calls. So prospecting was a big one. I wouldn't say the technological side of it, the building sites and that stuff wasn't really too daunting for me, especially now. I mean, oh my goodness, when I did it, I was typing out the sites by hand. I was building
Right.
4,000 word websites, you know, trying to make up new ways to talk about towing, over 4,000 words. And that's one site. And then you need to build another 10, now it's just easier than ever. You just AI everything, it's the content building has become so easy. So yeah, I don't think that's the hardest. I would say, yeah, getting prospects on the hook. And I would also say that because, everyone's business is unique and it evolves. And in my case, I think, and this probably goes for everybody, once you've got enough money to pay the bills and the pressure goes away, you can change the way that you prospect. In my mind, since there's less pressure now, because I have enough income to cover my expenses, I can afford to be more generous with trials, So I'll give
Mm,
somebody like a 1 month trial for free or 2 months. I can nurture them. And just by doing that, I'm sowing such a deep amount of trust that they're like, wow, you giving me this for 2, 3 months. I need to stop paying you, and in doing that, I think I've built relationships that have lasted a long time.
that's a great point. Yeah. Shiv now, I don't know. I assume because it was so unstructured when you kind of enter the program, Shiv now has mentioned like they also have outsourcing services that they can offer to students if, they don't want to be the ones calling. I imagine that didn't exist.
No, 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 no. Yeah, it was just, this is how you build and rank a site. This is how you sell it. Go do it.
Yeah.
But now he's
Well,
done.
yeah. And I don't know anything about his outsourcing services, but I would encourage anyone if they're thinking about doing this and they do it to just do it on your own. Even if it scares you, that's what I would encourage because I think you learn so much from it. I think as the business owner, that relationship that you develop with those clients, I imagine that is pretty key to just keeping them in
Oh
on your.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and everyone's different in the way they do it. I've decided to only do it within my own state for the reason that I want to meet my clients in person, and I
Mhm.
go out my way to do it. I'll drive 4 hours to go and have coffee with them because they're going to pay me a significant amount of money to get them business. And so I feel like my part of that deal is to go out of my way to go meet them and shake their hand and sit down and buy them coffee or lunch. And it works and it lasts. It lasts a long time.
Dude, yeah, I love that. A long time ago, I had a marketing agency, an SEO agency, and just meeting someone in part, like face to face, I think does so much for a relationship, even like a business relationship. Yeah, I think that's well worth doing for sure.
Hmm. That's not to say you can't do it from remote, and there's a lot of people that do it really, really well. I just feel like your skills have to be next level to
Totally.
maintain, to nurture that relationship to a really good level. I have a friend who does it from Europe, and his English is not even his first language, but he's just such a great salesman and trust builder that he's done well with it.
Mhm.
But I think if you have the advantage of being in local and you can meet them in person, it gives you a big boost for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I imagine, this day and age, I mean, I work fully remote and, I guess I have developed good relationships just over video calls. So,
Yeah, that's great.
there's that. I'm curious too. The community is passive income. And I wonder, in your opinion, how passive has it been? What kind of ongoing maintenance is there? What's the upkeep, client churn, stuff like that?
So I'll try and take them one by one. I think Well, I quite early on learned and was kind of guided and learned that I should outsource as much as possible of the legwork to a VA. And so I did that quite soon into the game because I realized that the web building, for example, it's a heavy, it was, especially in those days, a heavy slog. I needed someone else to help with that. So I would outsource that, and eventually I came across a friend of a friend or family of a friend who lives overseas, and they started working for me, and it's great. They're with me to this day. Husband and wife team, really, really good. And so in terms of the ongoing maintenance, um, that I pay them as a full-time income is how I maintain the business. They kind of run the back end, and anything that comes up, it's essentially if something comes across or if I get a text from a client, I'll just say to my guys, okay, can you fix this? Can you go and do this? And so um, that frees up my time, obviously, to kind of do what I need to do to keep growing the business, right? So that's probably in terms of ongoing maintenance of existing clients. They do the back end work. I obviously do the communications with the clients. I will say this in terms of how passive it is. I have a very good experience of that in the past 12 months because I got very sick last year. I had a major surgery in July, bowel surgery, and building up to it, I was kind of gradually getting sick. Anyway, I basically haven't worked probably on this more than, say, between 6 to 10 hours a week maximum in the past 12 months. And many of those months, I was just not working because I do a little bit in real estate as well. So we had a lot going on in the past 6 months. We sold our house, moved to a new one, and we sold an investment house. So my time was definitely kind of taken a little bit, distracted elsewhere. And the passive nature of the rank and rent would enable me to do that. It kept me with a steady income. My income didn't change at all, despite my lack of input. Absolute absence. I can say that, it was okay. I'm very fortunate to say that it was not affected.
That's amazing. I mean, if you just like, sit back and think about that, that's amazing, you know?
It is.
Like,
Yeah. I try to remind myself as much as possible, just like be grateful for what you have, what you built, and obviously Shiv and the model is giving me this opportunity, and so yeah, I'm very very grateful for it, for sure.
yeah. Are you continuing to build new sites or is it more maintenance now?
Yeah, at this point, another kind of important kind of I just want to call it a kind of a change, but a refocus is that I got to the point, or I'm reached the point where I have a decent amount of clients that are very kind of interested in staying with me. We have a good relationship, and so in my mind, I'm thinking, well, if they're already paying me, they know the value of my service, and I know how well they pay. They're set and forget. Why am I going to start to try to prospect for new clients if I can just build more from my existing clients and try to increase what I charge them? And so in the past probably 2 years, I've focused a bit more on building or helping my existing clients expand. And it's done well. I mean, I think that's probably been 50% of my increase in revenue has come from existing clients, I would say.
Mm, just increasing the
Yeah.
performance for them
Yeah.
and
Talking with
providing.
them, asking how it's going, asking if they're able to expand in terms of, location, geography, their radius, and just building that. And yeah, yeah. And then on the side, yeah, I do still, to answer your question, yeah, I do still try to reach out for new clients. I did also take on a salesperson, um, January of 25, so just over a year ago. And that helped a lot too. Obviously I give up 30% of the monthly revenue, but you know, it's been worth it. He's found probably 4 or 5 clients, and that also I don't deal with those clients. That's his thing. So
Mm, I see. I
so that's
see.
helped.
Yeah. Okay. So you built the system and then got the clients, and then from that kind of foundation, you're able to expand and hire the VAs and the salesperson. Is that it? VA and salesperson?
Yeah, yeah. 2 full-time VAs, and salesperson is he's essentially passive now too, because I mean he just as much as the leads are steady on my end, which is the part I manage, then everything will be fine with his clients. He manages the relationship with the clients, the ones that he secured. That's it. Yeah, that's all.
Very cool. About how many sites have you built, do you think, throughout the whole
At,
program?
at this point, I kind of looked the other day, about 450, I think.
450? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And
So
you were saying the VA built, well, I think at the beginning you said you were coding it. And then you hired a VA to start building?
Yeah, and then the platform I was using, I have no coding knowledge. I was building it in Weebly, just a drag and drop. And actually, the economy of it is what turned me away from Weebly because it was $8 a month per site. So as soon as I got to 50 sites, I was paying $400 a month.
Right.
And there was no sign of being able to change that. I contacted them and said, "Hey, can you give me an unlimited plan?" And they said no. So I said, "All right." So I migrated to WordPress. Those 50 sites, I migrated them to WordPress, and I just quickly became frustrated with WordPress. I think the number of plugins that were needed. I thought there must be an easier way of doing this. And I've been looking at unlimited options, unlimited browser, hosting options. I took on High Level and I migrated everything I rebuilt everything in High Level in their web browser. And so, yeah, personally, I built probably the first 50 or so sites. And around that time, I took on the VA and they built everything after that.
And yeah, speaking of expenses, so you have the web hosting fees, obviously, and then the salesperson and VAs that you employ. Outside of that, like what are your costs look like?
At this point, domains, which it doesn't sound like much on the surface. If you got one domain, it's initially $10, but the following year it goes up. I use names. The second year, it's like $18 per domain. But it doesn't sound like a lot, but when you got like 400 domains, it's a chunk of change. It's like 7,000 a year or something.
I mean, the margin you make on it is probably more than enough, but
Yeah, it's
yeah.
definitely worth it. Yeah. So domains, web hosting software. Yeah, there's not a great deal. And then Twilio. So call costs are I probably spend 1,000 to 1,500 a month in telephony software services.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And am I correct to say for Twilio, because their actual calls coming in, those are pretty much from paying clients anyways? Like it's covered by paying clients?
Yeah, I mean, well, to me, it's just the cost of doing business. I mean, I think um, I say I have 450 sites. Doesn't mean I have 450 sites rented. It's again, that's just comes from what I said earlier about my approach, which is build as many as possible. And I do a model where I have probably an average of 8 to 10 sites going to each client because I figured spoil them, give them as many as I possibly can, and they're not going to go away. Then they'll stay with me. And so, but the truth is also that I do have sites that don't go to anybody, or they go to a prospect, or I just forget about them. There's a bit of a mess there, which I just consider it's not worth my time to go through it to sift through it at the moment because I'd rather focus on just moving the needle. That's not a big term that people use, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But there's call costs a little bit there, but yeah, if it costs me at 1,500 a month to cover all of the calls, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to get down in the weeds.
Yeah, makes sense. Are you comfortable sharing like how much you're able to generate?
Yeah, yeah. It's dropped a little bit. I think I peaked last year around 30, 37 or 38,000 a month.
Amazing.
Now it's just over 30, probably 31, 32, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, and that's incredible. And that has sustained, you said, even while you were sick and not working at all for a few months.
Yeah. 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 And that's not why I pay myself, because obviously that's gross, gross
Right.
revenue. But, I still pay myself a decent enough salary that yeah. And it wasn't affected by, it came, there's churn, like you mentioned before, there's definitely churn. Or sometimes a lot of what I do, or some of what I do is managing the workload and the locations of my existing clients. Because sometimes I'll say, okay, let's try this area, and we try it, and it maybe doesn't work, or they'll say, all right, I don't want to do this area anymore. So those sites, I disconnect them and I look for someone else. So I wouldn't call it full churn, but it's like sometimes what they pay can dip or it can increase. There's a little
Right.
variance.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there's a little variance in there. But I think again, if you're making K plus a month, anything above that, it's not gonna. You shouldn't have to worry about a little variance here and there.
Right. Right. Makes total sense. In the course, have you had to deal with there's a feeling that I get, and I've looked through the course myself, but I think maybe some people would be curious or concerned if you've ever been approached throughout the program to like upsell, like here's an additional thing to be upsold on.
You mean people from the group selling to me or asking me to sell things? Sorry.
No, like shifts saying, "Hey, you're in the main program, but here's an elite program." Like a lot of programs do that of like getting people in, and then once they're in, there's like stages of programs that
Oh,
they
I see
buy.
what you mean. Yeah, no, with Shift Group, no, it's been, I paid the one-time fee and it's just been lifetime access. There's been no, Shift's good about that. He doesn't have like like you're kind of suggesting like an elite group or whatever it is that you have to pay an extra exorbitant amount to get into. No, it's I paid and got in and yeah, that's been the like I said, lifetime access to everything really.
Yeah, yeah.
Very good.
Who and just I think a couple more questions for you. Who have you told in your network about this, like personal network about this? Because I mean, it's obviously worked really well for you. Have you tried to say, "Hey, I'm in this program. Try this." And I guess as a part of that question, who would you say this program's good for? Like, what type of person?
So I've told close family and friends about what I do. Most people don't really grasp it or really understand what it is, even though it's quite a simple concept. They're just kind of like, oh, that sounds cool. And in my mind, I'm like, what do you mean? It's like it's amazing. You just make a website and you rent it out. Like, so not everyone kind of sees it that way. But yeah. So I've told people, I've you know tried to encourage people to take it on, but like at the same time, I don't feel like, I'm very aware that it's not something you can just pick up and wing your way through it. You've got to be really committed to it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to be, even though I feel like there's a really viable path to success on this, it's still, I think for someone to do it, you still need to be in some type of mindset. You have to be in a place in life where you're open to something like this. Because like you
Right.
said, and I talked to Shiv and them a little bit about it too, because they've told their like friends and family, and that's exactly what they said is like the typical response is, "Oh, that's cool."
Right. But like most people, I mean, most people will say, in my experience, is they prefer the stable paycheck, which totally understand. I get it. But I'm not willing to trade 40 hours of my life every week for a stable paycheck. I'd much rather do it this way. But like you said, it takes a certain personality. You have to be kind of bold in the sense that, you know, you're not going to make money for a minute. You've got to be okay with that. And, again, to answer your previous question about who it's for, like, you need like anyone can genuinely do it. It's there. It's an opportunity, but you do need to have some confidence and be a little aggressive about it. And you've got to be really, really into it. And you can't kind of just expect things to happen for you and put in a little bit of time building a website one day and then complain the next week that, oh, but I don't have any clients. You have to go and build it and push yourself to go out of your comfort zone. And yeah, you have to have that kind of mindset, like you said.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Do you have any as last question? Do you have any advice for anybody that might be thinking about pulling the trigger on it?
Probably what I just kind of finished my last point on is just to be, if you're gonna do it, go all in, as much as you possibly can. I understand not everyone has that luxury. People have families and jobs and bills, and of course, it's doable on the side. But I would say, if you have any way to try to separate as much time as you can to do this, you know, do so. Push as many hours as you can into it. And I would say also that one thing I kind of did in my personal journey early on was to follow the calls because they do weekly calls. Ship's great at doing weekly training calls. And I did it for a little while, but once I grasped the basic nuts and bolts, I was out. I didn't have time anymore for the calls unless I had a question. If I had a question, needed advice, I would log in and they would, Shiv or whoever's doing the call would help out. And that's great. The group itself was a great resource. But otherwise, once you've got the basics down, it's on you. Take it on, go out and just, in the words of Eric, this is just build, build, build. Be very aggressive.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks so much for lending me your time.
Yeah.
And congratulations on all your success in the
Thank
program.
you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike.